My family demanded I sign an agreement saying, "We're sick of you making everything about yourself," to stop me from parenting my siblings. I smiled and signed it. That's when I gave them exactly what they wanted. The document Mom slid across the kitchen table on her iPad, the one I'd bought her last Christmas, had actual legal-looking language. This agreement binds Jasmine Davis to sibling duties only. No overstepping parental boundaries, no unauthorized decision-making regarding minor children Tara and Cian Davis. My 14 and 16-year-old siblings stood behind her like bodyguards, arms crossed, shooting me death glares. "You're not that important, Jasmine," Tara sneered. "Nobody asked you to do all this stuff anyway." The irony was suffocating. My childhood had ended at 9 because I became the mother they needed while our actual mom was busy entertaining a rotating cast of boyfriends. Just last week, she'd asked me when Tara would finally become a woman. Tara got her period 3 years ago. I was the one who bought her supplies, explained everything, held her while she cried about the cramps. But sure, I was making everything about myself. I looked at each of their entitled faces and signed the agreement with flourish. Well, why didn't you just say so? If you want me to be just a sister, then a sister is what you'll get. They exchanged triumphant looks like they'd just won the lottery. Mom actually clapped her hands together. Finally, this is how a real family works, not the Jasmine dictatorship. What they didn't understand was that I had a master's degree in strategic planning and worked as a senior operations analyst for Hartwell Financial, pulling in $89,000 annually. My job was literally dismantling dysfunctional systems and implementing sustainable solutions. I'd been analyzing their complete dependence on me for months, documenting everything in detailed spreadsheets they'd never bothered to look at. The next morning, Mom broadcast her victory to her current boyfriend on speakerphone while I got ready for work. Everything's already so much better. Should have put my foot down years ago. Tara and Cian floated through the house high on their win, eating the meal prep I'd done Sunday, wearing the clothes I'd washed and folded. Neither bothered to check if I'd packed their lunches or if their permission slips were signed. They just assumed it would happen like magic. That's when I decided to give them exactly what they'd demanded. On Monday morning, I treated myself to my first ever Starbucks breakfast. Sat in the corporate cafe with my laptop, reviewing quarterly reports instead of rushing around, making sure everyone had clean clothes and lunch money. It was peaceful. Meanwhile, Mom discovered that teenagers don't actually wake themselves up. Cian missed his first period calculus exam because nobody set his alarm. Tara showed up to school in yesterday's wrinkled clothes, hair unbrushed, no breakfast, no lunch money. She had to borrow a hair tie from the guidance counselor and eat the free poverty lunch she qualified for, but I'd always made sure she never needed. Mom got written up at her retail job for being 2 hours late because she had no idea what the morning routine actually entailed. She'd never once asked how I got 2 teenagers ready and out the door, while maintaining my own professional schedule. By Thursday, the house told its own story. I came home from work to find Cian wearing his PE uniform to regular classes because every other shirt reeked of body odor. The laundry had been piling up for 4 days. Mom was on the phone with the electric company, begging for a payment extension because she didn't know bills had due dates. "Hey, Jazz," Cian said casually, like we were buddies. "Quick favor, can you grab me some deodorant when you're out?" I consulted the agreement on my phone. "Sorry, that sounds like overstepping my sibling boundaries. Shopping for your personal hygiene products sounds like mothering to me." "Come on, sis. Don't be petty." "Petty?" I showed him the document. "This specifically says sibling duties only. I'm just respecting the boundaries you all established." He muttered something about me being dramatic and stalked off. The smell followed him for another week. Saturday brought Tara's orchestra recital, the one I'd been reminding Mom about for 3 weeks. I sat in the audience watching my sister walk onto the stage in a wrinkled, stained dress. The fancy one I usually had dry cleaned was hanging in her closet, but nobody had thought to prepare it. Parents whispered. Kids pointed. Tara's face burned red with embarrassment as she tried to smooth down the wrinkles. When her teacher approached Mom afterward about the dress code violation, I chimed in loudly enough for the other parents to hear. "Oh, we had a family restructuring," I explained cheerfully. I was overstepping by handling her concert attire, so now Mom's in charge of that for the first time ever. Isn't that right, Mom? Mom's face went white as surrounding parents turned to stare. Several were my clients from Hartwell Financial who knew me as a competent professional. "We're reorganizing things," Mom stammered. "She made me sign an agreement," I added helpfully, pulling up the document. "I'm not allowed to parent them anymore. Just sibling duties, no more Jasmine dictatorship." Mrs. Patterson, the orchestra teacher, read over my shoulder, her expression shifting from confusion to concern. She'd taught at the school for 15 years and had never seen anything like this formal abdication of responsibility. Tara ran to the bathroom crying while Mom stood frozen, surrounded by judging parents who were now questioning what kind of household we really had. The consequences accelerated over the next week. My professional training had taught me that systems collapse follows predictable patterns, and I was watching it happen in real time. Wednesday afternoon, my phone rang with a call that confirmed my analysis. "Jasmine, this is Mrs. Peterson from the guidance office. I need to discuss some concerns about your siblings' welfare. Multiple teachers have reported changes in their appearance, attendance, and academic performance." "I understand your concern," I replied, "but I have no authority over my siblings. They've made that very clear." "But you've always been their primary support system." "No," I cut her off politely. "They've set clear boundaries about my role, and it's my job to respect them. You'll need to contact their legal guardian, my mother, about any concerns." 20 minutes later, Mom burst into my room with tears streaming down her face. "Please, Jasmine, CPS is coming tomorrow if they see the house like this." "Like what?" I asked innocently. "You know what? The dishes, the laundry, the empty fridge, Cian's grades dropping." "Wow, that sounds like a lot of mothering work. Good thing you're here to handle it now." "I'm begging you, just this once, help me clean up before they arrive." The doorbell rang. We both froze. "Hello, Mrs. Davis. I'm Rebecca Torres from Child Protective Services. We've received multiple concerning reports about the welfare of the minor children in this home." Mom looked at me with pure panic. I smiled sweetly and stepped aside to let the social worker enter. What happened next validated every strategic decision I'd made. The social worker's professional assessment was immediate and damning. Her trained eye cataloged the disaster: dishes with green mold growing in towering stacks, garbage bags piled against walls with flies buzzing around them, empty refrigerator except for spoiled takeout containers. Cian stood there in the same PE uniform he'd been wearing for 5 days, yellow stains crusted under the arms. The social worker pulled out her tablet and started photographing everything. Each camera click felt like vindication. She walked through the living room, documenting pizza boxes scattered on the floor, mountains of dirty laundry covering furniture, bathroom with black mold growing in the shower. When she opened their bedroom doors, she found unmade beds, clothes everywhere, Tara's bloody underwear from last week when she didn't know how to handle her period without my guidance. "Mrs. Davis," the social worker said calmly, "I need to interview each family member separately, starting with Jasmine." We sat at the dining room table, the only clean surface because I'd been doing homework there. She reviewed the concerning reports, Cian wearing the same clothes for days, both kids complaining of hunger to teachers, Tara's public breakdown at the recital. "I understand there have been some changes in household responsibilities recently." I pulled out the signed agreement, explaining how I'd been forced to step back from my parenting role. The social worker's eyebrows rose as she read the document. "Your mother required you to sign this?" "She said I was making everything about myself by handling their care. The whole family agreed I needed to stick to sibling duties only." "What exactly were you responsible for before this agreement?" I detailed everything systematically. Morning routines starting at meal preparation and planning, academic support every evening, medical appointments and permission slips, bill management because mom couldn't navigate online systems, transportation to activities, crisis management when mom was distracted by her dating life. How long have you been handling these responsibilities? Since I was 9, mom had a boyfriend who didn't like kids around, so she started staying out more. Someone had to keep things running. The social worker's fingers flew across her tablet. When she interviewed Tara, my sister broke down completely, sobbing about being hungry all the time, not knowing how to do basic self-care, falling behind in school without homework support. Cian came next, defensive but ultimately admitting he'd never learned basic life skills because I'd always handled everything. He described failing his calculus exam, wearing dirty clothes to school, having no clean sheets for 2 weeks. Finally, Mom's interview confirmed her complete incompetence. She couldn't answer basic questions about their schedules, teachers' names, medical needs, or academic requirements. When asked about Tara's allergy medications, she went blank. She didn't know Kian needed glasses or that both kids were behind on vaccinations. The social worker made her decision with clinical efficiency. Mrs. Davis, based on the conditions observed and the children's statements, I'm placing both minors in emergency protective custody, effective immediately. Mom collapsed to her knees, grabbing at the social worker's clothes. The professional response was swift. Additional CPS workers arrived with documentation and moving supplies. They packed small bags for my siblings while Mom begged and Tara screamed that this was all my fault. "You did this on purpose," Tara shrieked as they walked her toward the CPS vehicle. "You wanted us taken away." Cian stared at me with dawning realization that actions have consequences. Neither of them had considered this possible outcome when they demanded I step back. I packed my own bags and called my friend Emma's mom for pickup. At 22, with a master's degree and steady income, I had resources my family had never bothered to acknowledge. Within hours, I was settled in their spare room, officially independent for the first time since childhood. The aftermath unfolded exactly as my analytical mind had predicted. Mom's first parenting class was a disaster. She scored 23% on basic child development concepts. Her home inspection failed spectacularly when she couldn't demonstrate meal planning, budgeting, or cleaning protocols. Meanwhile, I thrived. My office performance improved dramatically without constant family crisis management. I applied for the senior analyst position that opened up, leveraging my crisis management experience and strategic planning skills. The promotion came with a $15,000 salary increase and recognition from Hartwell's executive team. 6 months later, at the family court hearing for permanent custody determination, I presented my comprehensive documentation, screenshots of the signed agreement, photos of deteriorating home conditions, records of my financial contributions they'd never acknowledged. The judge reviewed everything before addressing Mom directly. "Mrs. Davis, you formally prohibited your adult daughter from providing parental support to these children, then failed to replace that support with adequate care of your own. The court finds clear evidence of neglect and endangerment." Cian and Tara remained in foster care for 18 months while Mom completed court-mandated parenting courses. They learned basic life skills, experienced consistent household structure, and received academic support that helped them catch up after years of educational neglect. When supervised visits finally began, the transformation was obvious. Tara had grown 2 inches and gained healthy weight. Her grades improved from failing to honor roll with proper support systems. Cian learned time management, personal hygiene, and responsibility, skills that served him well when he aged out of care. The real victory came 2 years later when Tara, now thriving in college on merit scholarships, sent me a graduation announcement with a handwritten note. "Cintu, thank you for being brave enough to let everything fall apart so we could all learn to build it back better. You saved us by saving yourself first." Mom eventually completed her programs and established a functional household, but the relationship dynamics had permanently shifted. She understood that competent partnerships require mutual respect, not entitled dependence on whoever happens to be most capable. I established clear boundaries that protected my professional advancement and personal well-being. My career flourished. Senior analyst to department, head to regional director within 5 years. The strategic thinking skills I developed managing family chaos translated perfectly to corporate leadership. Most importantly, I learned that refusing to enable dysfunction isn't selfish. It's the most loving thing you can do for people who need to develop their own competence. Sometimes the kindest gift is letting natural consequences teach the lessons that rescue behavior prevents. The signed agreement they'd forced on me became the evidence that saved us all from an unsustainable system built on exploitation disguised as family obligation, strategic analysis, professional documentation, and the courage to enforce boundaries. Tools that transformed crisis into opportunity for everyone involved.